Hello, Mazzy here. It's the Music Stupid number 26, a back-to-back It's the Music Stupid because I just did one the other day, maybe yesterday. 5 records that I adore. I want to take a slightly deeper dive, and number one is this great rock and roller singer, indie artist. Now, indie artist covers a lot of things, but let's talk about Courtney Barnett. This is her debut album. I think she had an EP before this. Her first 2 records are amazing. A third one, um, I don't love, and then she did that interesting collaboration with uh, Kurt Vile, which I do like that record. But this is the first one, Courtney Barnett. Sometimes I sit and think, and sometimes I just sit. Indie, she's very clever in her lyrics and very accessible. It's funny. The sound of these records are amazing. They're not audiophile, Steely Dan crappo shit perfectly recorded. But for whatever reason, this album and the one right after with the red cover, can't remember the name right now, sounds amazing. There's a rock and roll essence. Her lyrics are up front. Her vocals are up front in a way like a Bob Dylan would be. Now, of course, you can't compare people to Bob Dylan. It's unfair. But Courtney Barnett from Australia, I've seen her twice, and I absolutely adore her. I will pick up anything that she does, but this one especially. Clever, quirky lyrics. What can I say? Really tight band. The band is tight. Did I say tight? The band's tight. So Courtney Barnett is the first one here. Now, I think it's his 5th or 6th album. This is Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. And the Buckaroos, the he's cited as creating what they call the Bakersfield sound. If you follow Vinyl Richie on the vinyl community, huge fan, and I think he lives in Bakersfield. Great thing, and obviously influenced the Beatles. Ringo sings, "They gonna put me in the movies." Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. Great country music, great country sound. This is an interesting record. I got the Tiger by the Tail, which is somewhat of a hit for him out of Capitol Records. What's interesting, I played this today. I haven't played this in a while. But there's a song on here that almost seems like not politically correct. I'm not one that has to get in the politically correctness of anything. But it's basically Wham Bam. And it's Wham Bam, Thank You Man. Exactly what David Bowie would sing years later. And you know what that's about, right? But you got this country artist saying, "Wham Bang, thank you, man. I don't want a baby. I don't want to get married." There's a subliminal thing. I don't know if at the time when this came out in 1965, if people actually realized what Wham Bam, Thank You Man referred to. But anything, whenever I see Buck Owens records, I pick them up. They're usually very inexpensive. But if you like country music, hey, if the friggin' Beatles, Ringo, can cover Buck Owens, you need some Buck Owens in your collection. Capitol, and they shared labels. They were label mates. Go figure. This came out the year Help came out by the Beatles. So uh, Buck Owens, I got the Tiger by the Tail. That's sort of a novelty song, but it's still kind of this is a cool record. I don't know what, maybe cool is the wrong word, but it's a cool record. So I'm going to use it anyway. 1984, the second album by this great band. I would argue, and don't argue with me, but I would submit for your approval. Picture, if you will, submitted for your approval, possibly the greatest rock and roll band, American rock and roll band in existence, still thriving, with virtually all the original members. I think there was maybe one change out. Someone's going to correct me on this, but that's Los Lobos from East LA. Tex-Mex, Mexicana, rock and roll. They're like a jam band. I've seen them 6, 7, 8 times. And every time I see them, they're fantastic. Obviously, they did the Tex-Mex music. Their first album was all in Spanish. They got picked up by Slash Records. This album was co-produced by T-Bone Burnett. This may be their best record, but all their records are amazing. And they may be the longest American rock and roll band still, the longest, greatest American rock and roll band still standing. The final cut, When Will the Wolves Survive? When Will the Wolves Survive? Of course, Los Lobos means the wolves in Spanish. I just love this band. They got kind of hooked into that new wavy post-punk thing, and they were not like that at all. But Slash Records has had that sort of that pedigree, if you will. But this is a great, great Americana, Mexican, Spanish, American record from East LA. Great rock and roll, great rootsy sound, amazing vocals. I just adore this record on Slash Records. 1984, When Will the Wolf Survive? Thank you. Now, we're getting in a little different territory here. Well, a lot different territory. It's all rock and roll to me. It's all rock and roll to me. Is that a Billy Joel song? Oh, God. This is my original copy, 1971. And you know how I know this is my original copy? First of all, it's a greenie, a Warner Brothers greenie. This is Faces, a nod as good to a wink to a blind horse, but it's got the signature Maslov. I figured here, if you haven't watched me in a long time, there's about 25 to 30 records in my collection around this time, 70, 71, mostly 71-ish, where I wrote my name on, which means I think I took it to a friend's house and I had to write my name on it. It's the signature Maslov. So if you find one of these in a used record shop, there may be a couple out there in the world. But I love this record. Of course, I like Small Faces, the Steve Marriott band with Ronnie Lane. Adore them. And then they got taller. Steve Marriott left. This is an original copy with this huge, massive poster. I mean, this is like massive and, oh, it's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. But what I said is the green label, anytime you see a Warner Brothers Records with this label, no matter what the record is, just pick it up. The green labels are fantastic. I actually cleaned this up. I haven't cleaned it in 52 years? 52 years. And I played it today and it's great. This is obviously, was this the third or fourth record? This is the biggest record of the Faces. When they got tall, Rod Stewart, Ronnie Lane joined in from the Jeff Beck group, obviously, or part of that whole scene. Rock and roll, great. But, you know, as much as I like Rod Stewart around this time, Rod Stewart had a parallel career with his solo records. That was kind of hey, that's a cool shtick. You're with a band, you play with the band, you can do on a different label, was it Mercury or whatever it was, your solo records, and you do these amazing records, rock and roll records. There's a grit to this music. There's a guitar thing that sounds so great with Ronnie Wood, obviously. But as great as Rod Stewart was as a vocalist, and I like Rod Stewart at this point, I like his early solo records. I like him up until maybe Warner Brothers Tonight's the Night. Once they got into the disco, Do You Think I'm Sexy? I'm out of there. I mean, I can enjoy it in a certain kitschy way now, but Tonight's the Night's about the last one. But all that Mercury stuff is, Every Picture Tells a Story is awesome. But what I like about this stuff is I like the Ronnie Lane tracks the best. Of course, with the Ronnie Wood, Rod Stewart, they had a hit. This is the first kind of massive or big hit they had with Staying With Me, which is a fantastic song. But my favorite song on the album is the Ronnie Lane, Ian McLaughlin song, You're So Rude. Frock. I learned what a frock was. You UK people would know what a frock was. We didn't call frocks in America, but you got puppets here. You got friggin' puppets. I adore this record. I think it's a good rock and roll record. I like that thing from the Rod Stewart, soulful, gritty voice. Guy's got a great voice. You can't deny that. But there's something about Ronnie Lane's voice that appealed to my taste and my sensibilities more than a Rod Stewart. So this Faces, this is a 1971 record, and this is produced by Glenn Johns and the Faces. We all know Glenn Johns, the Beatle connection, Rolling Stones connection, one of the great producers of that period. And lastly, boy, I had a great time the last few days playing this, Holland. This is, I've had this for a while. I know they just kind of reissued this, or they repressed it. This is an analog production version, double LP version of Holland, the Beach Boys. Now, this is 50 years old this year, 1973. I submit for your approval. This is the last great Beach Boys record. This is really led by Carl Wilson. This, budget-wise, went way over budget. They started in Holland. They worked in Holland, shipped over all their gear to Holland into this fantastic record. Combination of shooting it in the Netherlands and working in LA as well. And Carl produces it. The original came out with a 45 of this California Saga. This sounds amazing, but let's get back to the music, stupid. That's what this is about. I love the songs. Being a Northern California native, driving down to Monterey Coast, the Big Sur, that whole area there, this is that. Of course, we have this photograph probably of the the Holland waterways of Amsterdam, possibly. But there's something about this record. This is about the time I either saw them. I only saw the Beach Boys once, and this was the period with Ricky Fataar, of course, one of the Ruddles, Stig O'Hara of the Ruddles there, Carl Wilson, Mike Love, Dennis Wilson, but also Blondie Chaplin. And I saw them at Winterland, I'm thinking 73-ish, around the time this album came out. This is a gorgeous record. This is one of those records emotionally. I can picture the Highway 1 going from San Francisco down to Monterey, Carmel, going down to Big Sur. This really describes that feeling. Of course, it's got amazing songs like Traitor. Is it Traitor? Is that the one? Sail on Sailor is a fantastic song. The Traitor. It's got this whole California Saga talking about the whole Monterey Peninsula going south on Highway 1, along the coast, along the Pacific Ocean. If you've never had a chance to make that drive from San Francisco down Highway 1, through Pacifica, through Half Moon Bay, on along the south, down to Monterey and Carmel and beyond Big Sur, it's one of the most beautiful drives in America, and it's such a wonderful record. I haven't listened to this record in a while, and I pulled it out because I know they just repress this, I think, for analog productions. But whether you have the original or this version, this has the 45 record, this little kind of poetry piece. There's a certain beat poetry sense to it as well. But that is on this version. Any version you can get. This is the last great Beach Boy album. Once by 74, 75, forget it. How many big ones? What's the 15 big ones or 12 big ones? All that other stuff is crap, I think. But this is a truly a Northern California, mid-California record. Not the Surf LA thing. It's a different feel to it. And it's a gorgeous record. Carl Wilson is really kind of in the forefront. Is the leader of the band at this point, really, when you think about it. Anyway, great record. It's the Music Stupid number 26. Thank you for watching. Mazzy loves you. Really. Some of you.